They funny. You know what they said? It's how it's supposed to be. You good. The score. Welcome back, you guys. You feel me? The guy. Welcome back. Welcome back. Madison Memorial has been, taking control of this, the first half, 51-23, you know, just, the tempo, just making sure, they've been in control of the tempo this whole game so far, you know, making sure they're in control. A big reason, why has been, Anthony Miller. He's been knocking out some big threes and help, stretch the floor, for the Memorial Spartans. On the other side, you got Madison East. As they're staying competitive. I got to give it to them. They're staying competitive, still trying to let the game still come to them. But behind the really like the hustle on the defensive side and knocking down shots from Madison East. Jaden Presley, man, Jaden Presley has been making his presence be felt, making his presence be felt. But Madison Memorial has just been all over the place this game. Let's see if Madison East can turn these things around and get back in this game. Got Anthony Miller with another layup. He already has over 15 points. Knocking down those threes. He got Jaden Presley. He's trying to create open shots for his teammates, but his teammates just need a. You got to catch those balls. You got to catch the ball. You got to catch the ball. You got to do the little things because, like I said, when you're playing a team like Madison Spartans, they really execute off, your mistakes, and they just have to remember that and, dial in, dial in. That's all it's about. That's all it's about. Madison East and Madison Spartans, Madison Memorial with the nice layup from number 11. Zion, excuse me, number 11, Andrew Owen. And Jaden Presley with the deep three in the corner. See, that's what I need to see from Jaden Presley. Continue to play his game and not shy away from the three ball. Not shy away from the three ball. Let's see if Madison East can get a stop on this possession, and slowly but for surely get back in this game. By Jaden Presley pushing the pace, going down low, nice pass, passing it back out to DJ Nash. Can he hit? No, he can't. It seems like his hand is bothering him though. He went to talk to the trainer. It seemed like to get his uh, hand blacked. So let's see if for all of that he can you know finish this game off strong and because they need him. It's like you got Anthony Miller pushing the pace, passing it to Levante Johnson. A freshman, a freshman. Being able to play again with these varsity guys is really impressive. And a nice bucket from number 4, Ezra. Jaden Presley hesitates on the shots. They're playing really good right now, Madison Memorial. 68-27. Madison East has been struggling all game with, minimizing turnovers. They have the right looks. They have the right looks. But just coming together as a team and playing as one has really been an issue for them. But, they are getting buckets, though. I got to give it to them. And another bucket from KJ Cross. KJ Cross, a junior standing at 6'4", being able to, again, he's coming off the bench and being able to make his presence be felt and play his own game is really impressive, man. That's all it's about. Doesn't matter where you are on that depth chart. When your name is called, go in there and put in the work and be that player that your team can count on. That's all it's about. That's all it's about. DJ Nash from Madison East, still looking, still looking for him to take his first. Oh, a nice pass. And DJ Nash with the nice layup from Madison East. DJ Nash bringing up the ball, seeing if he can, get something going. Timeout. A Memorial. And this timeout is brought to you by Metro Family of Madison, Kia, and Ford. Madison Memorial with a possession. You know, looking at the last game we just watched, some Perry East, came out with the late victory against, Janesville Craig, winning by six. It was 61-60, winning by 1 point. It went down to, the last shot of the game. It was really, fun to watch. It was really close the whole game. So, some Perry East coming out with the win and, you know, and a nice block from number 20, which they called a foul. But, like I was saying, yeah, Madison Memorial and Madison East, this is a almost, 30, 30, 30 point game. I mean, Madison Memorial just really got to it early. And if I'm being honest, they got to it early. They didn't make as much as mistakes as Madison East has, and they've just been able to just play their game, especially a player to keep in mind that really helped them along the way. You got Anthony Miller from Madison Memorial knocking down them deep threes and just being that player that they can count on. Again, Madison East, they have a lot of, threats around the perimeter and, you know, overall in speed, like speed with the ball, handles, and being able to get to the lane. I give that to Madison East. Watching them, like that's something that they're good at. But when it comes to finishing and knocking down the free throws, staying consistent though, knocking down one shot and then getting a defensive, possession or a steal and, turning it around on offense, just to stay consistent. And I know they can do it. I know they can do it. You know, Brandon Curry with the ball right now. He's in the corner stuck. I don't know what number 11 the Madison East Zion was trying to do right there. But, even though the score is what it is, you got to continue to play because you never know who's watching. And hey, I'm always looking for the next athlete. I'm always looking, so the number 5 for Madison Memorial, Cole Slack, get into this game. He's getting into the game and, letting his presence be felt. I think that's his first shot of today's game. Again, Sunbury East won your matchup today. Madison Memorial is on the road to winning this game as well. Man, this is something to watch, and keep in mind. Brandon Curry with the hustle on defense, trying to get a stop. You got number 3 on top, passing it down low again to number. A nice block from number 12 right there for Jordan. Nice block from Madison East. They're a really good team. That just once they come together, I'm telling you, once they come together as one, man, it's gonna be a problem. It's gonna be a problem.
See, Verona just came into the building.
Still a lot of basketball to go. 8:30 less. You know, Madison Memorial. Seems like they got this game though underhand. What do you think?
I think Madison Memorial is going to finish off this game. Got 73-32 right now.
Yep, yep. That's all it's about,
A little bit
man.
over 8 minutes left. Timeout.
Yeah, and this timeout is brought to you by Metro Family of Ford, Metro Family of Madison. Yeah, this timeout is brought to you by Metro Family of Madison, Ford, and Kia. Like you said, Verona just walked into the building, and I think who are they playing? They're playing Janesville Craig, I believe. You know,
Yeah, that should be a good matchup. We haven't seen Janesville Craig this year.
no, we haven't. We haven't. What are we looking for to expect though? From Janesville Craig.
Well, being honest, I don't know what, but I know what we're going to be expecting from Verona.
Yeah,
They've been coming hard all year.
Yeah,
They're going to definitely push the basketball and push the pace.
yeah,
And just interested to see how they bounce back from that loss in OT.
yeah, yeah. That was a close game too. Owen, finishing that game with about 34 points. Man, I was really impressive. He said that wasn't even his highest scoring game though.
Yeah.
So that was cold.
Let's see if he can get a career high tonight.
Yeah, let's see. Let's see.
Once again, we want to say thank everybody out there for watching Up Next TV Network. You're watching my sports clips.
At the line, you got Chester knocking down the first one. See, that's one thing I can say about Madison East. Even though they're losing, they're still continuing to you know um,
Play hard.
play hard. Yeah, like you said, play hard.
That's all it's about. You got to keep going. You got to finish the game, right?
Yeah, got to. You got to.
Knock it down those free throws. Those are big. Free throws win games.
Yeah. 5 minutes left in this game. A lot of key players from both sides of the ball. We got to talk about Memorial though. Anthony Miller knocking down them threes from deep, man. What you got to say about that?
That's on fire. On fire. You cannot leave that guy open. You leave him open, he's going to knock it down every time.
Yeah. But you can't. You got to play with a hand up against him. Got to. You got to. Madison Memorial inbounding the ball. Let's see what they can do. Let's see. Seems like they, made some substitutions.
Yeah, a
They
lot
got
of new
the
faces in the game.
yeah. Seems like they got the younger guys out there right now.
I mean, at this point in the game, why not let them get in and get familiar with this pace of basketball?
Yeah, you might as well. You might as well. You got the lead up by more than 30 points. I think that was the right call as well. Get your starters out the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once again, we're talking about Coach Collins here. He's a well-known coach in the community. He's been here for years. If anybody knows basketball, that guy knows basketball.
Wow. Yeah, we were talking about Memorial and how you know, they play their basketball. They don't usually change up how they approach the game.
Not at all.
You know, and I believe right now, they actually only lost, I believe, one game in the season so far, 9-1.
So was that Verona?
I believe so. Yeah, they lost only to Verona. Conference, yeah. Overall, they're 9-1. Yep. So, man, that's dope. So Verona, they only lost yeah, they lost last week against a really good team as well. But man,
Okay. Got to bounce back from that.
bounce back, all about the bounce back.
Once again, we want to say thanks to everybody out there watching Up Next TV Network. This is the MLK Jr. Big 8 Showcase.
There we go. That's the first time I heard, Madison East get loud. That's my first time.
Yeah, gotta wake up.
You got to, you know. Right. We know this game is probably, how to reach. Now it's all about, playing and finishing off, with, all the way out, finishing at 100%, even though, the score is not what, the opponent, Madison East wants it to be. It's all about, just using this time right now as a learning moment. So, this never happens again, because who wants to lose? I don't want to lose. And I know they don't want to either.
Right.
You know? Can he knock it down? No. One of, like I was saying earlier, shot. That was a really good shot. Number 14, Quincy Sims, another ninth grader. Another ninth grader from, Madison Memorial, stepping up. I said it earlier as well. Levante Johnson, he's a nice, nice block right there. Levante Johnson, part of the starting five lineup for Madison Memorial. He stepped up, scoring a quick 6 points easy. And I thought that was really impressive. Really impressive. But Anthony Miller, man, they just can't touch him. I think he might be one of the best shooters in the Big Eight. If I'm being honest, he's one of the best. Number 24, Jakari Bond, knocking down the first free throw. You know, he's a junior standing at 6'2". That's being able to get some minutes in the game and contribute. It always feels good to be able to contribute to the win. And contributing to a win is not always scoring buckets. For all the athletes listening, it's playing defense, even if you're not in the game, being cheering your teammates on. That all plays a role, man. And again, you never know who's watching. So you always make sure you're leading by example and being the player that you're supposed to be. Like I was saying earlier, one key player you got to give, respect to is, Anthony Miller, being able to step up, play his game and, man, just be that player that, his team can count on. And he's really been doing that. This is my first time actually seeing him, you know, do what he does. Cause I didn't get to see a lot of this when he played Verona. That game was a little different. And, to see him actually play this time and, you know, be able to be that, key scorer for his team, it's always fun to watch. That's Chester with the ball. Let's see what he does. You got number 25 checking into the game. I believe he's also a sophomore or a freshman. They didn't add his name to the roster sheet, but being able to play and make make an impact. Right now though, this game is over, but you got to give it up for Madison East. One point. Yeah. You got to give it up for Madison East. Still playing all the way through. Jaden Presley was a really good player to watch. And he just got to keep his head up. Keep your head up, and just look forward to the next one. Look forward to the next one. But Jaden Presley from East and Anthony Miller from Memorial were two key players from both sides of the ball that really let their presence be felt on both ends. But that's a wrap. This game is over with 83-41. Madison Memorial takes this one by a big margin. If you guys are new here, this is Up Next TV Sports. I'm your host, Makai Jackson. And hey, don't leave too soon. We got multiple games tonight. Look forward to Janesville Craig versus Verona Wildcats coming up soon. And don't leave, because we also have games. We also have interviews coming up from the previous teams, Madison Memorial and Madison East. I'm your host, Makai Jackson, and we'll be right back.
Hey, you'll come back. You'll
Again, I'm your host, Makai Jackson, and stay tuned in for after game interviews. Madison East, struggling to, get the shots up, but that's all it's about. Is about, learning from your mistakes. So next time you play, you don't, have the same issues that happen again. And Madison Memorial, again, you got a really good shooter from Madison Memorial. You got Anthony Miller really knocking down them shots and, being a player that Madison Memorial can count on. And that's all it's about. That's all it's about. Again, I'm your host, Makai Jackson, and I'll be right back.